Alright, welcome back to another video. As the title states, it's time to make Shingo great again. But before we get into all the stuff we're going to do to Shingo, I think it's time I finally share a little backstory on why this is my favorite car, why I'll be keeping this car for a long time, where it came from, how I got it, how it got its name, etc. Why is this car important to me? Let's find out. So, we got to rewind the clock back to, would have been about December of 2020. At that time, I was actually driving an FA5 already. It was a 09, literally the same car. It was a 2009 Civic Si FA5. It was polished metal metallic. And I'd only owned it for a few months. It had been my daily driver. It was a really great car, actually. I never had an issue with it. Everything worked like it should. It didn't have any quirks. It was just a pleasure to drive. It was a nice car. The thing with it was the paint color and wheel combination I had on it. I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. Felt like I was driving an old man's car, which was unfortunate because it was so nice to drive. Every time I looked at it, it didn't excite me. So I'd been driving it for a few months, and like any self-respecting Honda boy, what do you do in the evenings when you're bored? You hop on the laptop and you start looking at Civics for sale or whatever you're into, right? Constantly checking the Craigslist. I'm in Canada, so Kijiji is a big one. You know, your Facebook Marketplace and auctions. You have, if you have the ability to view them, right? Like, you're always going through that stuff trying to find a deal. So one night I was surfing through the auctions, which I'd never actually purchased a car through. It's a salvage auction. I never bought one through there before, but I had been looking for a long time. And on this site, it's pretty common to see SI two-doors come up for bid quite often because there's a lot of them. But it's pretty few and far between that there was an FA5. So the one night I happened to be scrolling through there, I see that semi-close to me an FA5 popped up. So seeing that VIN tag there, like, it doesn't show the picture when you scroll through. All you see is a bunch of VIN numbers and the year of the car, basically. So I was scrolling through and I seen the FA5 VIN, which piqued my interest, so I clicked on it, and lo and behold, it's a Rallye Red FA5. So this took my excitement level just from like a 4 to a 12, you know, like through the roof. I was ecstatic to see this car. For any American viewers watching this, I know that you guys do have Rallye Red FA5s. You have for the entirety of the 8th gen Civic. They sold them new there. So it's probably not that exciting to you. But up here in the Great White North in Canada, Honda never gave us a Rallye Red FA5. So we got FG2s. Actually, it's probably one of the most common colors you'll see on an FG2, which if you look behind me over here, you'll see red FG2. So those were super common. You know, you see red coupes everywhere you go. They never really excited me. But we never, ever got the red four-door. So when I seen this car pop up on the auction, I was like, I need to have it, you know? I didn't know how, but I knew I wanted to make it happen. So I ended up getting a Carfax for the car because I figured it must be an American import, being that it was a Rallye Red four-door. So I ended up getting the Carfax for it, and it turns out it had no US history. The car is sold brand new in Vancouver, British Columbia. It looked like it had had 3 previous owners, and about 3 months prior to the collision that had written it off. So like the collision that put it on the auction site. 3 months before that, it was actually in a different collision on the driver's front corner. It said animal impact, and it was about $4,000 worth of damage. So it had just been fixed. And then it looked like it switched owners, and literally the exact same corner, it was hit again with, I'm assuming, another deer. I don't get to speak with the previous owner, so I don't know. But the car wasn't too bad. It, from what I could tell in the pictures, like it's sight unseen, so looked like it needed a hood, a fender, a headlight, potentially a bumper cover. Maybe the rad support was pushed in. And there was one kind of strange picture with the lighting. It almost looked like there was a small dent above the glass on the driver's side, kind of between the sunroof and the windshield. So I was a little concerned about that, but I thought, whatever. I need to own this car. So I had started looking into the previous auctions for SIs to see what they went for, and it seemed like at that time, for a crashed FA5 with so-so mileage, the car had 223,000 kilometers, I believe, at the time it was written off. It seemed like, depending on location and whatnot, anywhere from $800 to about $1,200, $1,300 kind of seemed to be the going rate. So, being that it was early winter, it was December, it was a little bit before Christmas, so I think money was a little bit tight. But I remember telling my boss about the car and how excited I was for it, and he ended up giving me a Christmas bonus that week so that I could add more money to the bid so I would be able to afford the car. So thankful for him for that. That was awesome. I ended up putting a bid in at $1,530 or something along those lines. And it's a silent auction, so you don't get to see what anyone else bids. It's just the car comes up for bid. It's online for 2 days. You put in your silent bid. At the end of the auction time, you get a notification basically saying you won the car, you owe us money, or so sorry, so-and-so won the car. So I was at work that morning and I was like refreshing the auction page constantly, trying to see if I won the car. Like every 2 minutes I was checking, and it like takes some time to process. So it took about 15 minutes after the auction closed. Finally got the page to load and it said I was the lucky winner. So I was beyond ecstatic that it was now my car. So I had to figure out a way to get it home. I ended up paying a company to ship it for me. It was actually about a 7-hour drive from me, and I had a 2-hour ferry ride to get here. So it cost me, I actually got a pretty good deal. I believe it cost me $700 or $800 to have it shipped to fairly close to my house, to a local shop that actually ended up doing the bodywork on the car. And then I went and picked it up there on a trailer. So I got a little anxious once it got there. I remember I went in just to have a look at it without the car trailer. I just went to see it. And it wasn't exactly like it was pictured in the auction. As I'm walking up to it, I could see like it was on steel wheels and bald tires, whereas in the auction it had like those 16-inch mags. But honestly, I didn't care. I was just happy to see the car. So I was walking up to it, and on the back trunk, the first thing I see is there's a supercharged badge stuck kind of right below where the Civic badge would normally be. And at that moment I like felt my heart drop. I was like, oh my god, no way, I just accidentally bought a supercharged SI. And I was like, there's no way. So I ended up getting in the car. It was unlocked, popped the hood, no supercharger. But I still was happy. I was disappointed, you know. I was like, holy crap, did I just get a supercharged Civic? But it was all stock. Nothing looked messed with under there. The only thing I found was it had Acuity shift bushings in it. In the interior, it looked basically as it was pictured. It was dirty. It had a lot of garbage in it and just random stuff like that. Didn't stink or anything. But it was missing the shift boot and the shift bezel. And I think it had the shift knob, but It was maybe laying in the center console or something. It was obviously someone had something nice on there that they wanted to keep for themselves, so it didn't have that. But I got the keys from the shop. Car started up right away. It sounded good, so all was well. From there, a few days later, I think I ended up trailering it home and you know, basically getting it in the shop, and I started tearing into it. The front damage was pretty much what I expected with the car. We didn't get anything too crazy, you know. It did end up needing the rad support on the driver's side. Headlight had to be pulled and lifted just a touch, but it was very minor. We did the headlight on that side. Replaced the bumper cover, hood, the centerpiece for the rad support had to be replaced. The AEC condenser survived, but the rad had a puncture in it, so we had to replace the radiator. Driver's side fender. And the door. So the deer must have rolled down the side of the car a little bit, and I hadn't realized that in the photos, but the door had some wavy dents in it. So I replaced the door. And yeah, that was all good. Everything for that, like, it was my first rebuild. Everything in that respect was going great. But as I started to have a closer look at the car when I was going around back, I noticed there was a small bubble of rust on the rear wheel arch on the driver's side. So I was like, okay, I guess I can have the body shop fix that up when I get them to paint the car, right? And I started kind of investigating closer. You know, I pulled out the trunk liner and had a good look in the wheel well, and what I found wasn't great. Previously, basically, it wasn't on the Carfax, so someone had paid cash. This car had been hit in the back corner on the driver's side, so it had a quarter panel replacement. It was done reasonably. The fitment was pretty good, not perfect. Like, there was definitely evidence you could see it was done. But the bummer was that they did not hook up the sunroof drain on that side. They just let the hose dangle there when they put the new skin on. And because they welded on the new quarter panel, of course, all the seams where you spot weld were raw metal. From the inside, they didn't bother painting it, right? It was probably a shop that just pushed it through quickly. So all the water from the sunroof had poured down and had just sat in that back corner, and it caused the wheelhouse to rust out, and it caused the kind of flat area where your trunk vent is to also rot out. At that point, I got really disappointed in the project. Rust is not my forte. I wanted this car to be really nice, so I was pretty disappointed when I discovered it had rust. But I ended up pushing through and kind of learning a few new skills. I went and cut a wheelhouse and that rear portion out of a base model Civic sedan at my local pick and pull. I cut all that out in just one piece, and then I brought it home and I drilled out all the spot welds, and oh, these mosquitoes are awful. Drilled out all the spot welds, separated and fitted all the pieces really nice to the car. I etched all the metal to get all the old rust out. Like, I really put time and effort into prepping it so that it would not come back. And then I had a friend of mine who's a professional welder come and actually weld it in place for me, because if I welded it, it would have looked like JB Weld and pubes. So he welded it. He did a great job. After that, we seam sealed it. I had also done the pre-weld primer on it, or weld through primer, whatever you call it. I POR'd it, painted it body color. Like, I went through great lengths to make sure it was really sealed, and just, I did not want the rust coming back because I wanted to keep this car. So cross fingers and toes, 2 years later, it still looks just like it did when we put it together. So I'm happy with that repair. It's been great. Maybe one day in the future, I would like to replace that quarter panel properly and have it fit a little better. But right now, I just want to enjoy my car, and I'm not worried about it being perfect, you know? When you're driving the car, you don't notice that your quarter panel is out by 1/16 of an inch. It is what it is. So from there, we had the car inspected, painted, And yeah, it was looking great and driving great, but I wanted to modify it a little bit. I wanted to just sharpen up the looks, make it a little more sporty handling. I just wanted a fun daily, so I ended up buying a full set of Kona Yellows for it. We did TN S-Tech lowering springs. I did the 9th gen rear sway bar. I did TSX front brake upgrade. 8-inch Enkai wheels wrapped in Falcon RT660 tires. I left the header and exhaust alone, and we did, I did a kind of an ice box style intake. Kept the factory air box, piped it down to the resonator, but I cut the resonator open and made it as like an air scoop. And that was about it, really. And I drove it like that for a year. I just enjoyed driving the car, putting kilometers on it. I drove it to work and back. I didn't actually really ever autocross it in that form, but I did take it to a track day, which was a ton of fun. I set a new personal best at one of our local tracks with it. And yeah, I basically enjoyed the car as it was. You know, it really, like I said, it was the same as the SI I had previously had, but this one excited me when I looked at it. So I was happy every time I got in this thing, you know, it was a lot of fun. So it stayed like that for a season, and then along came the next winter, and I had parked the car for winter like usual, and I decided I wanted to go back to stock with it. I wanted to race it in H Street, which is around the time I actually started doing YouTube videos. There was a video on my channel of me removing illegal mods for my Civic Si to go autocrossing, and I did do most of those, but there's still a few little things left over that need to be cleaned up, and I think there's a few things that we can do to really improve this car. It was good the way it was. The last season I autocrossed it all season, and I dailied it all season. I put mad miles on it. Never let me down. Well, I shouldn't say it never let me down. It did have a starter die on me, actually on our way to autocross. So it was fine when it was cold, but it wouldn't hot start. So I actually got my girlfriend to push me while I bump started it. And then when we got to autocross, we just let it run the whole night. We just let it idle in grid, and it was good. But other than that hiccup, the car never let me down. We autocrossed the heck out of it. Probably like 130 or 40 runs on it, and just, it was my daily every single day. So I ended up winning that season of autocross, actually, with the car. So like, the car is definitely competitive. It's capable of winning. But in one of my other videos you may or may not have seen, I ended up racing my friend Nick's black FG2 SI. He let me take a run in it at one of the races, and I was astounded at how much better his car felt. Like, I just thought that's how my car felt, you know, like it was just a understeer or whatever, and I just kind of dealt with it. I just thought that's how they felt. But I got in Nick's car, and in one run I was just flabbergasted with how much more front grip it had, how much more it was willing to rotate. It just felt more lively. Everything just felt better. So fast forward, I did run the rest of the season. Like I said, I did end up still winning in this car, but it left me wanting to figure out this car. So that being said, I have a pile of parts for this thing, all H Street related, and we're gonna go through this car like one system at a time, and we're gonna get this thing as dialed as I can. I have a few alignment ideas that I've never tried before. We've got some bump stop tuning we're going to do. We got a new sway bar for it. A bunch of little things. I'm not gonna tell you all right now. You'll see the videos as they come out. But basically, the plan is to get this thing absolutely dialed for autocross. It will be the dedicated autocross car from now on. This season you will have seen I've mostly been running the FG2 back there. that's just kind of been a temporary solution because I've been planning to redo this car. So the FG2 has been working really good. We've been winning pretty consistently with that car, but I have other plans for the FG2, so that'll also come later. But as of now, I'm gonna race the FG2 for a little bit more. We're gonna get this car dialed, hopefully in time that I can test it locally for a few events, make sure I'm happy with what I think should be a good setup, and then we're gonna take it to Canadian Nationals this year in Airdrie, Alberta, and see how we do. Honestly, probably get our ass kicked, but we'll do our best. Anyways, this is probably a bit of a long-winded video, but this is the start of Shingo's rebirth, so I just thought I would kind of give you guys the backstory on this car, why it's probably only one of its kind in Canada, why it's so special to me, and why I'll probably never sell it. But I think that'll be it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. We've got lots of Civic Si stuff to come, lots of autocross to come, and maybe some rallycross in the near future. So catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.